Funding for this program was made possible by a grant from the R.W. Weatherhead Fund of the Midgard Foundation.
In the late 1800s, an American teacher in Tokyo introduced the game of baseball to the island country of Japan. Yakkyu, or Besuboru, quickly spread throughout sandlots in the country and now has surpassed sumo wrestling as the national sport. Because of its slow pace, baseball fits the Japanese character perfectly. The conservative play mirrors the Japanese conservative and deliberate approach to life. Managers and coaches view baseball as a tool to teach loyalty and moral discipline, the same type of loyalty and discipline feudal Japanese lords expected from their soldiers and subjects. This samurai discipline requires endless hours of training, self-denial, and an emphasis on spirituality. So goes the Japanese approach to baseball. Most Japanese believe strongly in a disciplined way of life, and although Americans may not always comprehend the Japanese way, it's understood that this baseball is, without a doubt, exciting. It's baseball, samurai style. Baseball in Japan presents some of the interesting differences between Japanese and American baseball, but the program also shows how baseball is a reflection of many Japanese societal values, some of which are changing. There are two professional leagues in Japan, the Central and the Pacific, each containing 6 teams. In late October, the 2 pennant winners duke it out in the Japan Series. The Central is the more established of the 2 leagues and has won well over half the Japan Series titles. Although team ownership has changed over the years, most are sponsored by corporations for public relation purposes and are labeled as such. For instance, the Hanshin Tigers are sponsored by the Hanshin Railway Company in Osaka. The Yomiuri, or Tokyo Giants, are headed up by the Yomiuri Media Group, which has one of the world's largest newspaper circulations. The Hiroshima Toyo Carp are jointly sponsored by the city of Hiroshima and Mazda Motors. And the Chunichi Dragons are owned by the Chunichi newspapers of Nagoya. In the United States, this would be the same as tagging the St. Louis Cardinals the Anheuser-Busch Cardinals, or calling the Detroit Tigers the Little Caesars Tigers. The 2 most famous players in the history of the game are Sadaharu Oh and Shigeo Nagashima. Both were Tokyo Giants. Oh, who is part Chinese, was perhaps the most feared hitter in the game, banging out a world record 868 home runs during his 22-year career. But by far, the most popular player ever in the history of the sport is Nagashima, who was also nicknamed the Burning Man. A powerful hitter, as well as an excellent fielder, the charismatic Nagashima was a symbol of the Japanese virtues of loyalty, teamwork, discipline, and self-sacrifice. In his playing days, he seemed to represent Japan's new status as a world economic power, and may be the most loved and admired man in Japan ever. The 2 led the Giants to an unbelievable 9 Japan Series championships in a row during the 1960s and 70s, and 17 championships overall. When it comes to attendance, one source estimates that Japanese baseball pulls in over 20 million fans a year over a 135-game schedule. The Hanshin Tigers, for instance, claim to draw over 2 million aficionados for their 65 home games annually and also do well on the road. The American majors draw over 70 million fans a year. The rules for American and Japanese baseball are the same with a few exceptions. The most notable difference? Japanese umpires call a wider strike zone. Unlike its American counterpart, the Japanese game has time limits. There's a 4-hour or 12-inning time limit in the Pacific League and a 4-hour, 15-inning one for the Central. This is to eliminate tie ball games. Years earlier, there was a time limit of 3 hours, and many games ended in ties because there was no time for extra innings. The newer limit allows for extra innings to break the deadlocks. Ties count in the standings and lead to some odd finishes. In the 1988 Pacific League pennant race, for instance, the Kintetsu Buffaloes finished second to the Seibu Lions by 0.02%, even though the Buffaloes won more games than the Lions. Japanese baseballs are slightly smaller than American ones and are constructed with imported cowhide. There's no grass on the infields of Japanese stadiums. Almost all are dirt. Games are played during heavy rains, but are usually postponed during typhoons. The Pacific League employs a designated hitter, and the Central does not. There are some definite differences in the strategy employed. The Japanese play a more conservative and deliberate game and are not as aggressive as their American counterparts. Managers tend to play it safe.
They're just not as aggressive as Americans. There's not as much base stealing. There's not as much diving for balls. Even when the Japanese run the bases, they more often go one base at a time. You don't see Japanese going from first to third as often as Americans do.
Managers deem it very important to score the first run of the game, which is perceived as a morale buster for the other team.
Yeah, it demoralizes the opponent, and it also gives your own team a lift that you got on the scoreboard first.
そうですね、精神的な余裕を
The first run gives us an emotional advantage and allows us to relax a little bit. If we can get the first run, I can use various offensive strategies. I really think that managers and players believe that scoring the first run gives us a real chance to win the game.
が欲しいためにまず1点ということだと思いますけどもね。
With runners in scoring position, managers rarely go for the big inning like Americans do. Instead, they play for one run at a time, which usually means a lot of bunting.
もう一つやっぱりパワーヒッターが少ないということで、2番バッター、日本野球の2番バッター。
We don't have many power hitters, so the number 2 batter must attempt to bunt. We assign the second spot in the batting order to a player who can bunt well.
It's important anywhere, but there's really an overemphasis on it. And even if they get their leadoff man on in the first inning, a lot of times they're going to bunt just to get that first run on the board, a psychological lift.
それもありますし、逆の立場になれば、
Yes, and also their strategic options would be more limited.
Perhaps the strongest part of the Japanese game is the pitching. Although pitchers usually don't overpower a hitter, they're excellent at brushing the corners of the plate and working the count. The pitching also reflects the conservative Japanese nature.
In America, 95% of the time, basically you're going to get a fastball 3-2. Here it's even 3-0, they'll throw you fork balls, or so you really have to be on your toes here.
Pitchers won't challenge you like they do in America. America is a society with lots of confrontations, and Japanese avoid confrontations as much as possible.
They're not afraid to walk you, and they'll pitch backwards where, if we get in a hitter's count, they'll throw you a lot of breaking balls, or, and they won't come after you with a fastball.
They'll cat and mouse them, and they'll go inside and outside, and they won't give them anything good to hit. They'd rather walk them than have them hit a home run.
Some teams have 2 or 3 good starting pitchers in a 4-man rotation and maybe a good stopper to bring in during the late innings. However, if a team doesn't have a stopper, a manager may require his starters to pitch the entire game.
The starters in Japan will go farther into the game than American starters will, since they're not as deep in the pitching department once they get through maybe the first guy out of the bullpen. So you're going to see many more complete games in Japan, and they're just going to work their starters longer, and they're going to work that one good reliever that they have. They're going to work him more. They're just going to run him out there until he doesn't do the job anymore.
However, this overuse of the starting pitchers appears to be a contradiction, for the Japanese are known for their long-term thinking and planning. This is especially true in the business world. Yet using a pitcher so often without rest destroys his arm and career after a few short years. One needs to view this from a different perspective. A Japanese pitcher obeys the manager's orders without question, because that's what's expected of a warrior. It's what a samurai would do. Individual desires must be put aside for whatever the manager deems as important for the good of the team. This obedience is partly responsible for Japan's economic miracle, which has made this island nation a world economic power. It's believed these same principles apply to baseball as well. If the player would ever rebel, the management, the press, the fans, and sometimes even the player's family would look upon their warrior as selfish and perhaps even cowardly. Of course, selflessness and courage are some of the romanticized virtues of the samurai warrior, and everyone expects the player to take on the role of the samurai. Fans are fond of remembering such legendary players as Iron Man Inao. Inao pitched 6 out of 7 games in the 1958 Japan series to take the title against the Giants. This was an unprecedented accomplishment. Or fans speak of Golden Arm Canada, who won 400 games during a 20-year career. It's safe to say that these great pitchers were the exception rather than the rule. But these legends invite some rather unfair comparisons. The players probably don't like these comparisons, but are expected to obey with a samurai type of stoicism. In the United States, umpires are assertive individuals who maintain control of the game. They're not afraid to stand up to angry managers and players and eject those who become unruly. Umpires in the Japanese professional leagues, however, are less assertive than their American counterparts, and they don't seem to carry much power or command a lot of respect from players and managers.
There's much more contact between Japanese managers and umpires. You know, in America, if you touch an umpire, you're out of the game. But in Japan, they'll bump them and push them and sometimes even kick. Only in the extreme cases does a manager get ejected. But physical abuse, as long as it's not too extreme, is tolerated here by Japanese umpires.
Japanese umpiring is sometimes unpredictable and often irrational. This leads to some interesting calls.
So we were playing here, and this was this season, earlier in the year, and playing the Yokohama. And pitcher throws me a fastball away, and I hit just a bullet to right center field. I know it's going to be a home run, and so I'm jogging around the bases, and as I round second, my third base coach holds me up and says, "Hold on just a second." And I touch third, I go on to third base, and I touch third base, and the umpire went out, and they said, "Well, we don't know if it was a home run or not." And I walked over because the time was called, and Glenn Braggs was the right fielder, and I asked him. He said it was a home run. It went over the fence, but it hit the concrete steps and came back in. And Bobby Rose was playing second base, and I said, "Well, did you see what happened?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "It was a home run." And first baseman named Takagi said, he came over and he said hard luck and started laughing at me, And they ended up taking away the home run and giving me a ground rule triple. And that's the first I'd ever heard of a ground rule triple. These fans are crazy here, man. They just continually chant throughout the whole game, and they feel that they're actually helping you hit. You know, it's a different kind of mindset. They feel the louder they scream, the more enthusiasm you have. And
sure, all the players, not only the American players go into slump, but the Japanese players go into slump. But they will root, they will give all the incentive words as they would give to the Japanese player, they will give to the American players.
Well, the first time I heard him, when I went home and tried to sleep that night, and all I did was hear banging, and you know, I couldn't sleep because of it. So.
As you can tell, Japanese baseball fans are loud, producing one of the most deafening roars in the sports world. It's an awesome display of energy.
You know, just endless amount of energy. So it's, you know, it's exciting to play in front of fans that are like that.
Standard fan gear includes trumpets, whistles, taiko drums, megaphones, and other noisemakers. The most supercharged fans of all root their team on at their mecca, known to all as Koshien Stadium. They're the Hanshin Tiger fans of Osaka, and the noisiest of all sit in the famed right field bleachers. They're at their loudest when the Tigers entertain their arch rivals, the Tokyo Giants.
Well, the Hanshin Tiger fans are probably the most loyal, rabid fans in the world. They, rain or shine, they'll be out here as long as there's a game. They'll be out there. And Koshien will be packed every night. And it's really an event for them to come here. There are a lot of people out there in the stands who really aren't huge baseball fans. They may not be, some of them are probably not that knowledgeable, but to come to Koshien, to experience it, because it is the mecca of baseball stadiums here in Japan. And they paint their faces yellow and black and put tiger stripes on, and they put on their tiger happy coat, and they blow their horns and bang their drums. You know, it's really an event.
The fans have been famous for their loud cheering. Especially in recent years, they've become much louder.
Although the cheering may not always be in tune with what's happening in the game, it serves several functions. Being a Hanshin Tiger fan, for example, seems to satisfy the Japanese need for harmony or to be part of the group. In all types of life's activities, the Japanese usually do things in groups. This is also true in baseball cheering. Many have been Hanshin Tiger fans all their lives.
I feel like they're a part of my family.
It's a local team. And I like the team now because there's lots of young players. The team is starting to build momentum. I've been a fan since I was a child.
The fans and the awesome cheering.
Personally, I like the Hanshin Tigers very much. And that's since I was a kid.
they may not be great baseball fans, but they're Hanshin Tiger fans, and they just come to see the Tigers win and to cheer them on. They come with their friends and they stay 20, 30 minutes after the game and they're still out there cheering.
Secondly, fans believe that the cheering inspires and energizes their team. Close games often cause the fans to cheer even louder to try to lift the spirits of their heroes. Thirdly, the activity also acts as a tension release for the normally reserved and stoic Japanese. Fans can release all their inhibitions and let it all hang out.
I guess compared to Tokyo, there aren't many places to release the tension and stress in Osaka, except at Koshien Stadium.
At times, this release can become extreme.
Of course, there are times that we get so loud and obnoxious that we annoy other fans. For example, in Kanazawa City in Fukui Prefecture, when the Tigers were on the road, a fan threw a megaphone at a player and hit him. I don't like displays of obnoxious behavior.
Fans have run onto the field and attacked players, and there's a fair amount of fights that happen during especially a Giants-Tigers game. They beef up the police force, so they're tame by American standards, I think. But sometimes they'll get out of hand.
There appears to be more ill-mannered fans now who are offensive to other fans. That's because it's noisy around here, and people in Osaka like to get together and have a good time.
Many fans are members of Tiger booster groups called Oendan. Oendan are hierarchical, with earned membership spots. Many charge dues and issue membership cards. Each Oendan is led by a dancho, or cheerleader. The dancho makes sure the cheering is non-stop.
Experience and trust are needed to obtain this position. Many people had to recommend me. Around 1935, when baseball started, we started cheerleading. Throughout our history, there were about 100 cheerleading groups. Then, we merged into one.
Some players don't particularly care for the fan noise.
I don't mean to offend anyone, but I don't like the whistling and trumpets. I'd like to see some of this noise eliminated.
There's too much cheering. Japanese fans wave huge flags, beat on drums, and blow whistles. These displays annoy other fans as well as the players.
There are many beautiful and unusual aspects to Japanese baseball. One of the most colorful is the seventh-inning balloon release. Fans can purchase packets of oblong-shaped balloons before the game. After a musical cue through the stadium public address system, the fans let them fly. In the States, fans will hear the national anthem before a game. In Japan, fans listen to team fight songs. Another pleasant difference is that all stadium public address announcers are women, which gives a touch of elegance to the game.
5番ファースト小早川武彦ファースト小早川背番号6 6番レフトブラウンレフトブラウン背番号43
The post-game hero interview is an interesting aspect of the Japanese game. When the home team wins, the star of the game is interviewed on a small podium at home plate immediately after the game. The interview is piped through the stadium PA system for all the fans to hear.
放送席ヒーローインタビューです。見事開幕連続セーブの日本新記録を打ち立てました大野投手です。おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。
ここまでノーヒットに全ての試合を抑えている本当に素晴らしいピッチングですね。
はい、ありがとうございます。今日はね、よく守ってくれましたから、やっぱりこれは一人でできませんことだし、本当みんなと一手丸になってね、やってこれた結果だと思いますので。
今日マウンドに上がるときにこの記録というのは意識されましたか？
意識をするなと言ったらそうなるんですけど、自分の状態ピッチングができるように心がけたつもりです。
さあ最後のバッターを三振に打ち取ってベンチに帰ってきて上田選手からウイニングボールをもらってもそのボールをスタンドに入れましたね。
そうですね、今日の記録の過程ですからまだ続けるように頑張ります。
これからも大野投手のこの記録がどんどん。
It's interesting to note that the hero explains that the record is a team achievement, not an individual effort. It could also be symbolic that he returns the ball to the fans. They are also part of the group. In the United States, the traditional baseball meal is a dog and a beer. In Japan, it's more like yakitori and sake. A wide variety of food is available at the Japanese ballpark. Hot dogs are sold, although they're made out of pork. Beer is abundant, as are many other types of liquor. American soft drinks are sold, in addition to thirst-quenching Japanese ones. But more typical fare is the yakitori, which is made up of skewered pieces of chicken, chicken skin, and chicken livers cooked over a huge flame. Also popular is ikayaki, skewered pieces of squid, also cooked over an open flame. Of course, many types of raw seafood are also ready to be served up. Okonomiyaki is a type of Japanese pizza. In Hiroshima, it's made with noodles. During chillier weather, fans consume bowls of noodles served in piping hot broth.
この白い容器に器にうどんの玉を入れます。そしてこの熱い湯の中にざるがありますので、その中にうどんの玉を入れまして、温めまして、水を切りまして、この器に入れます。そして向こうの方が天ぷらの具を入れます。こちらの人がうどんの汁を入れて出来上がりです。出来上がりこれ。
1シーズンのうどんの売り上げは約10万杯、生ビールも10万杯です。その中は生ビールだけで缶ビールは含まれていません。うどんまた生ビールがなければクレームとなるでしょう。
A wide range of ballpark clothes, souvenirs, and memorabilia is also available. Actually, the game of baseball took root in Japan well over a century ago. Horace Wilson, an American teacher in Tokyo, introduced the game in 1873 to the island country. Only 20 years before, Commodore Perry had sailed into Edo Bay along the Tokyo coast to pry open the Orient to trade. An early form of baseball fever quickly spread throughout sandlots in Japan. The game soon became a part of athletic programs at several universities in Tokyo in the early 1900s. In fact, American college teams traveled to Japan to take on the Tokyo schools. Likewise, many Tokyo universities toured the United States. But the Japanese viewed this Western game from a different perspective. Like all sporting activities in Japan, the coaches saw it as a moral platform to teach purity and self-discipline. The martial arts philosophy of endless training, self-denial, and emphasis of the spirit served as a model. It took on a samurai flair. There were several American professional baseball excursions to the island country, starting with the Reach All-American team in 1908. However, the most notable was the Fall Tour of 1934, which featured the venerable Babe Ruth as player-manager. The Babe, in low spirits because he had just been released by the Yankees, originally declined the offer. But once he saw the tour promotional poster featuring his face exclusively, he happily changed his mind. Some of the more famous American players were Lou Gehrig, Charlie Gehringer, Jimmy Fox, and Lefty O'Doul. They were matched up against Japan's top collegiate and corporate players. Although the U.S. All-Stars took all 16 games, the Japanese were never discouraged because they were playing America's best. Total attendance was almost 500,000, virtually selling out each game. The Japanese people seemed to love Babe Ruth, especially in Osaka, where 75,000 fans crammed in to see him play. Ruth belted out 31 hits, including 13 homers and 3 doubles, with a batting average of .408. The appreciative hosts honored him by erecting his likeness in a bust outside a gate at Koshien Stadium. The bust remains in place to this very day. The tour took place during heightened international tensions between the United States and Japan. 1934 would be the last time Americans would come to the island country. After the war ended, General Douglas MacArthur took over as Supreme Allied Commander of Allied forces in Asia and the Pacific. Sensing a definite need to boost morale in war-ravaged Japan, MacArthur encouraged a rebirth of baseball while discouraging sports with militaristic overtones, such as judo, karate, or kendo. For the most part, there seemed to be no lasting bitterness between the Americans and the Japanese people. American and Japanese teams began to tour again. The excitement of Beisuboru began to burn again in the nation of the rising sun. The development of the Japanese professional leagues actually started in 1934, before the war. Its driving force was Matsutaro Shoriki, the owner of the Yomiuri Shimbun, Japan's largest circulating newspaper. Inspired by the financial and artistic success of the Babe Ruth Tour, Shoriki's vision was to sponsor a team to compete in an 8-team league, with the winner garnering a championship trophy. Shoriki's club became known as Dai Nippon Tokyo Yakyū Kurabu, or the Great Japan Tokyo Baseball Club. It featured many of Japan's better players. In 1935, Shoriki sent his squad to California to train with Lefty O'Doul and the San Francisco Seals. O'Doul tagged them with the name Tokyo Giants because the Dai Nippon name was too difficult for Americans to pronounce. The Giants were quite successful. Shoriki's squad played 102 games against various minor league teams, capturing 93 victories. There was one note of confusion, though. Americans attempting to keep score could not understand the Japanese numbers on the back of the Giant uniforms. In 1936, Shoriki had enticed other businesses to form ball clubs. Most notable of the firms to join the league were the Hanshin Railways and the Chunichi newspapers. By 1950, after the creation of more teams, the league split into the Central and the Pacific Leagues. Most of the original teams, such as the Giants, Tigers, and Dragons, form the core of the Central Division. The total number of teams expanded from 8 to 15. By 1958, each league filtered down to 6 clubs. Most of them remain in existence today in some form or another. The Japanese player begins playing at a young age. This is partly because of the Japanese cultural need for group activity and because parents want their children to learn spirit and discipline.
When I was a kid, I played in summer, I played baseball, and in fall I played football, and winter I played basketball. But in Japan, even from the elementary school level, you join one team or one club and you're a member for life.
僕は、父親が、おもちゃを買ってくれなくて。
My father didn't buy any toys, but instead bought me a bat, a glove, and a ball. I really didn't have any choice in the matter.
If a kid in elementary school chooses to play baseball, he's going to play baseball all year round. And he's not going to have a chance to play any other sport because every day he's going to have practice after school. And they'll have, this will continue all through their junior high school years.
Once in the professional leagues, the Japanese player is expected to take on the role of sameness, to fully integrate himself into the group. Individualism is frowned upon and actively weeded out. Players wear neatly trimmed hair and are clean-shaven. All have the same batting style since they learn to hit the ball the same way. Hence, there aren't a myriad of different batting stances like there are in the American majors. Only 2 to 3 foreign players are allowed on each team, so there isn't a blend of Caucasians, Latinos, and blacks in the lineup as on American clubs. This sameness has its roots in the Bushido code of the samurai. Although ideas are changing, this unofficial code of honor still remains strong. For instance, a player is expected to follow the manager's orders without question, no matter how difficult, harsh, or unusual they seem.
I think players, those who listen well to the advice of managers and coaches, are successful. And I've seen from my experience that the players who listen well play a lot longer.
Well, there's a saying in Japan that says the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. And it's just the way the society is here. The society doesn't appreciate differences. And a lot of times it will actually, they'll frown on anything a player does to be different.
The player must be willing to give up any individual desires for the total good of the group. Nowhere is this demonstrated more than in practice and conditioning.
Of course, only a handful of players are gifted with such physical potential to play well. I think those who survive this intense competition are those players who practice hard.
Because of all the training, the Japanese are some of the most superbly conditioned athletes in the world.
The purpose of practicing is to perfect playing skill, physical strength, and mental control. We think that practice is everything.
Practice and conditioning begin almost as soon as the season ends in October. Players go through light autumn workouts with the team and then train on their own until spring training begins. Amazingly, spring training actually starts late January, in the middle of winter.
I'm sure it's too much, but that's the Japanese way. It's hardly possible to change.
Training camp is intense and exhausting. There are endless hours of conditioning, batting, fielding, and pitching. Players sometimes begin workouts as early as 8 in the morning and end with shadow batting and pitching until 10:30 in the evening. Meals are often taken in the field so as not to waste practice time. Throughout this Marine Corps-style training, players are expected to suck it up and follow the manager's or coach's orders. It shows that the player has fighting spirit.
In Japanese, they say guts or fighto. Probably the most important thing would be to have fighting spirit. Fighting spirit cannot be emphasized enough as how important it is. That's the number one thing, is to show enthusiasm and work hard.
However, they should not practice without direction. The players should develop their own method to fulfill their potential. Managers and coaches should advise them appropriately.
Once the season begins, the intense training falls off a bit. However, managers still hold vigorous 3 or 4 hour workouts before a game.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way of doing things. They practice hard, throughout the whole season. And whereas in the States, as it gets to, the summer starts to heat up, you might take things a little easier to conserve your energy for the game. Well, here actually practice is as much a part of the game as the game. So if you don't practice well, you don't play well. That's the way they feel.
Of course, all players don't believe the long, strenuous practices are necessary.
In my opinion, I don't think so. It's a tradition, so we just follow it. I don't think hard training is so beneficial. Each individual's conditioning need is different.
Yeah, I think there's too much. When I talk to the players privately, they tell me that it's stupid for us to be running this much. I mean, by game time we're spent, and it's just that they can't say it. they can't tell their bosses that look, I don't want to do all this.
Fans tend to think players train a lot. But to tell the truth, I don't think players train so much. Nowadays, players have the option of reducing their training if they think they're overworked. In the past, we never had this option. If the coach or manager said we had to practice hard, then we had to practice hard.
Whether or not players like practice, all the hard training takes its toll, especially near the end of the season.
夏場は体力消耗しますからね。もっと能率のいい練習内容になれば。
In summertime, we easily lose energy. I think if there was a more effective way of practicing, we would play much better.
ような気もするんですけど。
Well, obviously, it's going to wear them out if they're, if they're doing all this running and training and drills and all these things. Obviously, especially when you get into the summer months, when it gets so hot and humid here, that's when people are going to start wearing down. And a lot of times, American players over here, they really start hitting their peak when it gets to be July and August. They really turn it on because the pitchers are worn out by then.
やっぱり日本の野球っていうのは
American players always say that Japanese baseball has too much conditioning. Japanese players think so too. I think there should be less conditioning. Each player is different and should develop his own routine.
There's a saying that Americans play baseball, but the Japanese work at it. This implies, of course, that Americans have fun at the game, and the Japanese take it very seriously. Fun versus work. Is baseball fun for the Japanese?
仕事です。ビジネスね。
It's business for me.
自分からやっぱり野球を取ると。
Without baseball, I'm nothing. I guess 90% of my life is made up of baseball.
In Japan, they really do work baseball. They don't play it. There's not a lot of joking or clowning or, they're not out there to have fun. They're out there to do a job, and they do it very hard. And the coaches and managers push them hard. And I often feel when I see a Japanese player hit a game-winning home run, I think it's more a great relief that he did his job and now he can be satisfied, where as opposed to it being happiness and jubilation. I don't think they enjoy the game as much as Americans do.
Some players do enjoy themselves playing the game.
In games, it's fun, but in practices, it's more of a job.
During hard practices, I really feel it's a job. But I put up with it because it's a part of my job. But when I'm on the field during a game, I really enjoy it.
They enjoy it to an extent, but I don't think they really enjoy it as much as Americans do.
In Japanese baseball, there seems to be one glaring contradiction in training.
Like our whole team smokes. It's amazing. You get on a bus and it's just like a big moving cigar, you know.
It used to be that American major leaguers in the twilight of their career would come to Japan for a couple more years of big money. In recent times, many of the Americans, or gaijin, who make the trip are in their prime. Most Japanese teams acquire Americans because of their power hitting. They have much more upper body strength.
Of course they're important. We've placed them in the 4th and 5th spots in the batting order. O'Malley came up with some key hits 7 times. And Pasoric came up with the game-winning hit twice. We depend a lot on their hitting.
In the States, it's a power game, and here it's more of a put good contact on the ball and get base hits. And
their leg strength is, a lot better than the athletes in America. I think our upper body strength is better.
I think the foreign players are the key to winning a pennant for any team. If a team's foreign players live up to expectations, then that team has a real good chance to win the pennant.
I only know American baseball from television. Yeah, I have to admit, in terms of speed and power, the Japanese players lag behind.
Many American hitters tear up the league when they first arrive. Then things change.
Yeah, last year I got off to a really hot start, and they pitched me a certain way. But see, you have to understand, in our division there's only 6 teams. There's 3 games a night. So every pitcher that's going to face you the following day knows exactly what you did the night before, what pitches you hit, what pitches you took, what you look good on when you took it, and what you look bad on. So they know exactly how they're going to pitch you. They have a game plan before they ever get to you.
In order to lure Americans to the Japanese leagues, owners pay them large sums of money, much more than most Japanese players make. With this money comes big expectations from the team, the fans, and the press. Sometimes too many.
Well, I think the key with them is they expect an awful lot. They expect a lot out of American players, and if we're not doing well, if the team's not doing well, it's our fault, and it shouldn't be that way. I mean, we're here to help the team, but, we're human too. We're going to make mistakes, and we're going to go in slumps, and we're going to have some problems as well as they do.
If you're going well, everybody, it's great. If you're not going well, not so good. So I think it's it's kind of an incentive for you to do well too.
Brown, it should be noted, trains the Japanese way. The relationship the Japanese manager has with his players is different from that of the American manager. It's much more paternalistic. American managers and players rarely spend more time than is necessary together. They practice, travel, play, and sometimes eat together as a team. Then after the game, they usually go their separate ways. However, the relationship between the Japanese manager and his charges is more like an extended family.
These people are not just their players, it's kind of like their extended family. And the manager will, he might be their go-between when the player gets married. And obviously, if you're with these people as much as Japanese baseball teams are together, which is, except for a couple weeks during the year, they're playing or practicing. So when you're together so much, it's kind of like an extended family feeling.
It's hoped that this paternalism will build a strong sense of unity and harmony, which will in turn lead to championship baseball.
To know each player's strong points and attitude, and then use this potential to win games, to bring out the most in a player.
Of course, the manager expects a similar type of paternalism from the front office. This produces a lifetime of loyalty to his ball club.
I love this team, so I don't think I could ever manage a different one.
Well, it's changing. Before, when you join a Japanese company, it's usually for life. And a baseball team is their company. So when a player joins the company, they expect to be there their whole career. That's how it's been. Recently, it's changing a little bit. There's more, but that's reflective of society in general, because the older ideas are changing, but gradually, slowly.
The question that always comes to mind is, will the Japanese and the Americans ever play in a true World Series? Other teams such as Cuba, Taiwan, and South Korea would probably be included, and some type of playoff system would have to be developed. Are the Japanese ready for the global competition?
I really think so. If we put together a team of Japan's best players, then we can compete on the same level.
I really don't think so.
They're closing the gap between American baseball and the game here.
I played against a Major League All-Star team last year. I felt major leaguers are much stronger than us. They might have a little better technique, and their concentration is much more intense. I think it will take a little bit more time to reach the major leaguers' level. As for the Cubans, they not only have good technique, but have tremendous power. We are behind them also.
If you compare the Japanese players to Americans or Cubans, the Japanese are going to be smaller physically. Fundamentally, and as far as technique goes, I think the Japanese are maybe superior to the Americans and the Cubans. But if you have a player who's 5'10" and 175 pounds, obviously he can't do the same things that Jose Canseco could do. The power and the speed is not what it is in an American player here.
A true World Series is not needed for the continued domestic success of baseball in Japan. However,
I think it's a good idea. If you had the Japanese and Taiwan and Cuba and the United States, I think you'd really have some interesting games, and it'd certainly create a lot of interest throughout the world.
Japanese baseball is a fascinating reflection of Japanese culture. There are many things which give this American game a truly Japanese signature. The selfless approach to team play, the awesome energy of the fans, the traditional Japanese food, the advanced technology, and the simple excitement of a good play. the Japanese also have ideas to exchange with their American counterparts, such as approaches to conditioning, training, and batting practice. This double batting cage, for instance, allows for more batting practice in a shorter time period. Despite the differences, American and Japanese baseball are still basically the same, whether it be the rules of the game or the big league dreams of future players. Baseball in Japan may be an important common ground between two completely different ways of life.
Funding for this program was made possible by a grant from the R.W. Weatherhead Fund of the Midgard Foundation.